greetings. I hope everyone's doing well. Whew, I had a week. I tell you what, I got in yesterday flying in from Wisconsin, and I tell you what, I was exhausted because, you know, it was an all-day event and had a couple delays and some different things like that. But I thank God I'm here, and I thank Him for His grace and His mercy, and for letting me continue on. Hey, listen, this is the last lesson for the month of June. June 26th is titled Back to Basics, and it's coming out of Isaiah, the 51st chapter, verses 1 through 8. So, just like the previous lessons, we're looking at the prophet Isaiah, and this message in these passages serves as encouragement for the exiles to understand that God continued to look out for their best interests. You know, so even through all these trials and tribulation and these tests and things like that, God is still looking out for them. So it's more encouragement for the exiles. And if you want to know what an exile is somebody who's barred from their native country. So in other words, they can't go home. Imagine having a home, that you can't go to, because what does home represent? Home represents love, inheritance, comfort, all the warmth and things like that. But you can't go home because you're exiled. So it's encouragement for those people. So listen, in the verses 1 through 8, and I'll let you read through them on your own. The first 3 verses, Isaiah is speaking to the people, and then God takes over verses 4 through 8. And I had a thought. I said, Isaiah is the opening act, and then God is the headliner. And then after the message, there should be an after party, some encouragement and some celebration there. So the theme in the verses is for the Israelites to look, listen, and pay attention. They're in the situation because of their own, negligence, not following after God. By the way, I use the R.H. Boyd books for Sunday school, and I also got me a new shirt too. Got 2 shirts actually, so I'm really enjoying that. So believers affirm their best days are yet to come when God restores them for eternity, especially during our times, our current time periods, because what's going on right now? We have demands for justice and accountability. There's a lot of stuff going on in the news, even just this week, a lot of court decisions. But anyway, all people want to be treated equally and have access to what is thought of as the American dream. Unfortunately, the majority of society lives outside the parameters of the Lord. Therefore, when life becomes a struggle, non-believers can only turn to themselves and other devices, which render negative results. However, as Christians, we can be assured that living in God's domain is a guarantee for our good days increase during the span of our lives. So we must continue to follow God to have positive results. Remember, you can't rely on yourself or any of the other worldly devices. All right, so that's what our lesson is. That's what lesson is talking about when it's saying back to basics. Because again, it's another message of encouragement for those people who are exiled and been in captivity with Babylon. As Isaiah is talking to the people, and he mentions, he says, Isaiah addressed the people who sought the Lord and were committed to living according to the standards of God's chosen people. So the people who were committed to living, when you think about commitment, that requires some consistency, requires some faithfulness, requires obedience. So he's talking to those people who are dedicated to saying, hey, I want to get it right. I got to get this done. The people who are being faithful, offspring of the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it said, trust in the Lord forever. For the Lord God, you have an everlasting rock. I'll read verse 3. Verse 3 says, for the Lord will comfort Zion. He will comfort all their waste places and will make their wilderness like Eden. You remember Eden, the Garden of Eden, how much of a paradise it was. Her desert like the garden of the Lord, joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving in the voice of song. So, Isaiah is painting a picture for them what it's going to be like, when God is going to comfort them and what they have to look forward to. That's a great thing. So in Israel, he's encouraging Israel to look at the example of Abraham. And if you know anything about Abraham, the great miracle that God performed with Abraham and his wife Sarah, Sarah, having a son at a very old age, God will still come through. It may not be on our time, but he will be on time. So Isaiah reminded Israel that the Lord would comfort Zion, indicating that Israel would be under God's protection. Not only under his protection, he's going to provide for them as well. So that wasteland that they were exiled from, well, it wasn't a wasteland when they got exiled, but it's turned to a wasteland now. But they'd be able to return home, and their home would be built back better than what it was before. So in verses 4 through 8, we pick it up, and God is talking to the people, and he's saying, listen to me. He's saying, lift up your eyes to the heavens. And he's saying, I'm going to bring my deliverance swiftly. My salvation has gone out, and my arms will rule the peoples. So he's letting them know, it's like, my power is here, but, I'm still going to take care of you. And this is a cause for celebration. The lesson talks about how pay attention to me. He wants the people to pay attention. Give me your undivided attention, in essence. And, he wants them to have the proper attitude. If you have the proper attitude, it's very important. Proper attitude means that you're able to focus and listen and pay attention and be in the right mind frame to receive the message that's going out to you. Because the reason why Israel's in this problem is that they just had so much negligence. They didn't want to listen to God in the first place, and that's how they got in this problem. This captivity, the exile. So they have to have righteousness. And God's saying the triumph I grant is near. So, in other words, hold on. And again, it's something we have to do today, is to make sure we hold on. Don't be discouraged so easily. And God's going to dispense out justice. I think last week we talked about how he was going to use the enemies of Israel's enemies to help free them. So we have to continue trusting in God, like I said. So to close the lesson, I know this is kind of brief. Says believers look to God's faithfulness in the past as assurance that he will continue to work on their behalf. Think about it for a minute. Think about it. Think about the times that you've been in trouble or you struggled and how God helped you out. If he did it before, he can do it again. So Israel was forced to depend upon its faith in the Lord for the very survival. A lot of times that's what we have to do today as well. We think about ourselves, think about the things that we've gone through, and the struggles that we have. Some of them self-inflicted, some of them was life just being life, but we still have to press on and still have to trust in God. Israel was forced to live in an oppressive society because it refused to honor its heritage as God's chosen people. So all they had to do was live for God. And a lot of times it seems that living within protection and blessings of God should not have been difficult. However, and it's funny, we look at them all the time and say, wow, why were they so hard-headed? But then we can kind of look in the mirror and see that we do a lot of the same types of things that they do, where we have been disobedient and haven't been living in God's will. But when you straighten up and you get it right and, you keep trusting in God, have that faith, he seems to always come through. Like I said, not on your time, but on time, because he's an on-time God. Listen, that's my time. I hope everybody's having a great week, a great weekend, and looking forward to another productive week. I don't know what to say. It's just, listen, I'm praying for you all. Pray for me. And you all take care. Listen, I'll be hitting you next for the next lesson, because I got my new book in, my R.H. Boyd Sunday School book. So I'm going to check that out and be ready for the next one. So I hope you're taking care of yourselves. Be blessed.